I'm really happy to have Alicia Jackson here. Here just the other day, she was facing again another eviction. I was on May Day of this year, was it?
Yes.
That a number of organizations, including Veterans for Peace, helped Alicia get back into her home. And they've been continually standing by her against the police and eviction notices. I thought this was an appropriate quote. This is not a story of excess, said Angus McGuire, representing We Are Oregon, another group sponsoring the action. This is the story of people who took out This is not the story of people who took out big mortgages that they couldn't afford. It's about people paying their mortgage for 5 to 6 years and got hit by an economic crisis. The banks refused to take responsibility, so the community is taking responsibility. And with that, I wanted to talk with you. I'm glad that you were able to make it out here today. One of the things that I found out was that you were also a veteran.
Yes, I am.
Could you tell me when you joined the service? In
1988.
1988.
Yes.
Where did you serve?
I was in Germany first, in Garlstedt, Germany. And then I went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
And how was that experience?
It was something. It was definitely an experience.
So now, did you have Veterans House loan when you came back?
Yeah, I did. I had a VA loan. Right.
And they're not helping you at all with this?
Well, since I already used it, and they said I was no longer under the VA loan, there was nothing they could do.
So tell us what happened, how this sort of progressed here, so we can understand for the people out here that.
Well, in 2003, I believe it was, my uncle, he was the previous owner of the house, and he lived there since the 1970s. So you would really think the loan would be paid, the house would be paid off by now, right? But there were people that came around. I was in North Carolina at this time, but there were people that came around and they were selling windows, and they sold him some windows for the basement. I don't think he really needed them, but so they were taking advantage of elderly abuse. And so, of course, he said yes, and he bought them. So that just added on to the mortgage. So he passed several years ago. So, well, before he passed, I bought the house because the state was going to take it. So that's how I attained the house. And I was working a part-time temp job in 2010, I believe it was. Well, it started in 2008, but yeah. So when I got laid off from that job, then I couldn't find another job quick enough to make the payments. So I fell behind. And
you had the property next door, and can you talk a little bit about what happened there?
Yes, that was an empty lot.
That was an empty lot.
Right.
But it was part of your property, overall property.
Yes.
And because I saw something when I was reading about they stole the property. How did that happen?
Yeah, when we self-evicted, they took my name off the deed and put on Fox Capital's name because he's the so-called owner of the house now. So
who is that again? Could you say that clear?
Fox Capital.
Fox
Stuart
Capital?
Fox.
Stuart Fox.
Exact, right. Okay. Which nobody can. Well, I was told nobody can get in touch with him, and so he bought the house and then sold the lot to a developer, Chris Baird, and he built the duplex on the empty lot. So yeah, they separated the property.
So you at first left the house for a period of time?
Yes, because I was getting letters in the mail, you know, your house is going to be up for sale, you're going into foreclosure, you're going to be evicted, and, you know, I didn't know where to go, you know, I didn't know who to talk to, I didn't know anybody else was going through the same problem. If I had seen somebody else going through the same thing, I don't think I would have moved out, you know, but there was nothing in the news, nothing that I could see where anybody was going through the same thing and, you know, fighting foreclosure.
Yeah, and then you start seeing across the country this is happening all over.
Right.
And the government's talking about that, you know, they bailed out the banks and they
Right.
bailed out
General Motors.
General Motors, and
Right.
and we're starting to look at here. We just saw the program 4 where they bailed out General Motors, but workers are suffering.
Exactly.
They bailed out the banks, but they're not helping the homeowners.
Right, right.
So, and when you were in the military, what kind of job were you doing, or what kind of job did you?
I was in supply. I worked with the motor pool to give them.
We're all around the motor pool today.
Oh yeah, to issue their vehicle parts. Right. So we did inventory. You know, we maintained the products.
So you're experienced in that area, and you couldn't find any job. Nobody's here to trying to help you find a job in that.
Actually, that's
field,
where.
Or did you want to do that anymore?
That's where the last job I had was. Yeah, I was doing that.
And what about going back to school, using your VA benefits for that? Can you still do that too?
Well, I already used them.
Did you?
So, right, yeah.
And
Yeah.
what was your area of study then?
Criminal justice.
Criminal justice?
Yeah.
Well, no wonder you're fighting back. Well, that's great. So when we and now you have the criminal justice system
Right.
trying to move you out.
Right.
So here the other day, I know they were talking about removing you that day. So what happened?
Well, actually, there was I found out by an employee of the Oregonian came by my house, and he said, I heard there was going to be, they were going to board up your house this morning. And I was like, well, no, I haven't heard that. But so I called, you know, I made some phone calls, and I told the people from We Are Oregon, you know, what was going on. And so they made phone calls, and they had people coming over, and they had, you know, talked about we're going to have a press conference. So we had a press conference letting everybody know what was going on. Because the eviction order, I believe, was the 24th or the 25th.
Yeah, 24th, I think it was.
Yeah. So there were people staying in my house for those 2 days.
Yeah, people were camping out outside. I mean, I think the incredible thing is that from the Occupy movement that came in the very beginning to help you, what got you to decide that you were coming back? Did you go down to Occupied? Is that where you, or did they come to you, or what? How did that all come about?
No, actually, in February, I met the Black Working Group, and I talked to them about moving back in. I asked them, had they ever heard of anybody moving back into their home after being foreclosed on, and they told me I might be the first. So from there, we started working on moving back in.
And what kind of attention is this getting nationally? Have you had any reporters from national news?
Well, first I was told that one of the people in the Occupy group, their mother lives in Ireland, and she was watching it live streamed on May 1st from Ireland. Yeah, and the other day I was interviewed by someone from the Associated Press. So, yeah.
Well, so what's the sort of, if it was an illness, there would be a prognosis, but what are you seeing here in the future? What is going to happen here as they're in this battle? What is the strategic sort of plan to win this battle?
You know, I'm not sure. It doesn't seem like we're going to win through the courts, but, you know, we just have to keep fighting anyway. Because we just have to play it by ear, because we don't know what's going to happen. So
the main thing, well, one of the things is talking to the people out there. The more people we get involved, the more people that are telling and talking to their representatives, is to find a solution to put you back in your home and to take care of the bills and make sure you have a good job. I mean, here's a veteran. They keep talking about, you know, I mean, this is what we talk about all the time on this program, is that we have veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, highly qualified veterans like yourself, that can't find a job, you know. Sometimes people can get a job right away. I have friends that tell me they got a job, but it always seems to be who you know in this situation. But friends of mine who have not, you know, they've got college degrees, they've got you know, and science and education, and there are no jobs to be had.
Right.
There seems to be also a sort of stigma against veterans, They say they want to hire a vet.
Right.
They want to welcome them home.
Right.
They're willing to send people off to war and send them around the country, but they're not willing to help them when they come home. So
Right.
I think people want to. I think that general people want to, but the bureaucracy of government seems to turn against that will.
Right.
And so we need your support to get out there. Is there a website or a contact number that people can get involved, how they get involved in this?
I believe it's called weareoregon.org.
We Are Oregon org. That's one way you can get involved. You can also contact me, and I can put you in touch with a number of the other people that are working on standing out in front of your house and
Right.
helping you on this level. There are people I've read across the country where there are a number of different organizations that have actually gone in and retook over the houses, even neighborhoods.
Right.
There was a case where they went and foreclosed on a bank.
Wow.
Because the bank had not paid its bills and they were not the legal owners. Now,
funny?
One of the other things is that a lot of this paper is being moved around.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to find who the owners really are, who really owns the house.
Right, right. And that's another thing, the banks. I always tell people to move your money out of the banks, because they're doing illegal things with our money. So we just need to move our money out of the banks. And I was told they're going to have a November 5th or November 7th or something. There's going to be a Move Your Money Day. But I don't think we need to wait for that day. I think we just need to go ahead and do it now.
Yeah, and when you move it into your local credit unions. These are organizations and community banks that represent the people in their communities,
right.
And they're not big banks. And we need to change the whole banking system. So
right.
I think that's really an important thing to do.
Right. I was told that the bank was one of them that told the Water Bureau not to turn my water on. So I want to tell people to move their money.
Well, let's tell them about that. One thing, you're in your house, and then they're saying they're going to do the eviction thing because or board up your house because your water wasn't on.
Right, because the downspouts needed to be fixed and the water was not on, but now the downspouts have been fixed. Now they just need to turn the water on.
But when you're willing to pay the water bill, but they say no, right?
Right, right. And they actually came out with Portland's finest and took the water meter. So, yes.
So this is it's just a continue. When they did that, so is the city in collaboration with the so-called owner of the property?
I'm not. Let's see. Well, I was told that David Schaff, the administrator of the Water Bureau, called the Fox Capitol, and he said he did not want the water turned on. So.
But then there was somebody who was working for the city that also stood up on your behalf.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, there's people fighting from all kinds of angles.
Right.
What do you think people can do here to be supportive?
Well, I need to. They would need to get on the rapid response team, and that's where people, if somebody, the police or the city, comes to board up someone's home that's resisting, they would be contacted. And, at a moment's notice, just like it was at my house the other day, 100
right.
people were there 7 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
So, they would be contacted. People can volunteer to, just bring different things, food, water, clothes, whatever's needed. And they can do that by contacting weareoregon.org.
Okay. And what about the neighbors in your neighborhood? How are they looking at all of this that's going on?
Some of them are, I think most of them are positive. Yeah, I think so.
Well, I remember, I'm a Portland boy. I grew up here, and I remember in the neighborhoods going to around where you live, and beautiful homes, and people. There was a community. There was a black community there.
Right.
And then over the years, you know, it's been gentrified, and
Yes.
a lot of people of color have moved out of there or forced out of the area.
Right.
Property values went down, and these developers came in and bought up the area, and then prices went up and forced older people who had been there for years from the very beginning and owned those homes no longer could even afford to pay the taxes on the houses, and people were forced out.
Right.
And you've probably seen this whole thing happening as it's going on.
Yes.
And I mean, we need to take a look at why these things are happening. I know that there was a book I was reading on this sort of urban planning, and we saw that at a certain point in time, actually, drugs rose up in the community, and as the drug violence and stuff started to happen, then property values went down, and all of a sudden developers came in, and all of a sudden that disappeared. And it was as though there was sort of conspiracy of people involved in this kind of thing. Have you heard that? Have you saw that in a sense that was what was going on?
Well, yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it a lot. I mean, everywhere in Portland is being gentrified. I mean, Alberta even used to be, you know, all these, and now they've all been moved out, and now all these other restaurants and homeowners are coming in. It's everywhere.
Yeah, well, it used to be it was white flight America coming out here, actually, where I live. You know, people moved out in this direction, and then there was it began. Gas prices went up, and jobs actually started disappearing, and people wanted to move closer into town, and then that meant they had to try and get a hold of that property again. It's just this sort of occupation.
So jobs went overseas, right?
Yeah, jobs went overseas.
And speaking of coming to help when someone's resisting, I heard there was a family in Georgia actually they were moved back into their home, and the authorities kicked them out at 3 o'clock in the morning because they were afraid of Occupy, and they had small children. Now, I think that's just so ridiculous. I don't see how they could do that to, you know.
Well, yeah, I know they talk, you know, I mean, there's this whole thing. As a veteran, again, I always think about how, you know, we are working for peace and for justice and for a better world, but at the same time, the people attack us for being those leftists or those hippies or those, but that comes out of a mindset from the old Cold War, and they would talk about how, you know, Russia would come in the middle of the night, and yet it's here. Nobody's complaining about it coming in the middle of the night here and kicking families out of their home and putting them into the streets.
Yeah, and my situation is not even the worst of it. I mean, there's thousands of people on the street, veterans, you know, and then people in the so-called richest country in the world.
That's right.
How does that happen? It rolls down hills. I mean, we know that this was no accident. It was all planned. All these foreclosures, all these people going out of business. It was a plan from the top.
Yeah, in my area study on economics, that was one of the things that I saw was that, you know, you had a bubble, this house sort of bubble. Things go up. It can only go so high, and they need to, when they speculate, they need to speculate and they need to make that come back down so they can buy in cheap. It forces people out of their homes.
Right.
I want to, you know, we're coming to the end of the program, and it's always too short for these things to talk about. Right. But I would like to, you know, have you come back again and let us know, you know, what's going on here in the future. And I think it's really important to keep people aware. Please, you know, contact me if you can. Contact weareoregon.org. Get involved. Be involved in what's going on here. I think that a very important thing, people say, you know, what happened to Occupy? Occupy is still here.
Right.
People are still fighting for justice, and they're defending the rights of people against the 1%. We are the 99%.
Yes.
Thank you again. Alicia, so glad you can make it out here.
All right, thank you. As am I.